Welcome, Dana Point voters. Thank you for joining us this evening for another general meeting. We host these general meetings to update you on our advocacy work for Dana Point voters, answer your questions, and let you know how you can assist with our efforts. I'm Ann Eubanks, Dana Point Voters Association President, and I'll be your host this evening. At the end of the presentation, we will have time to address questions, which you can ask by using the comment feature. We also had some advanced questions we will address. As an FYI, for those of you viewing the broadcast on social media, we won't be able to see your comments or questions. At this time, I would like to introduce our board of directors and advisors present this evening. Stephen Carpenter, Treasurer. Victoria Winters, Secretary. Our directors, Alan Johnson and Bob Langen, and our advisors, Grant Curtis, Hank Davis, and Dennis Winters. We would like to begin by filling you in on details from a recent meeting we had with Shahar Amitay, who is the California Coastal Commission Program Analyst for the Dana Point Harbor Revitalization. As you know, there have been several complaints filed with the California Coastal Commission during the past year regarding the harbor revitalization, and we've had no updates from the California Coastal Commission. The first complaint was regarding the day-use boater parking. Grant Curtis, our resident expert on this subject, is here tonight to address this topic. So Grant, please enlighten us on recent developments.
And I'm afraid Grant got dropped out again.
Okay, well, when he comes, Grant's having a little technical difficulty, so we'll move on to the next subject, and hopefully he'll be able to update us when he gets back on the program. So a second complaint was filed in September of last year regarding the Marina at Dana Point slip layout issued in August of 2022. After analyzing the layout, many boaters felt it wasn't in compliance with the coastal development permit. Since September of 2022, we have sent many follow-up emails to California Coastal Commission without a response. In our recent meeting with the Coastal Commission, Shahar admitted he really didn't understand the differences between the layout and what the Coastal Commission approved. He asked for clarification email, which we sent to him last week. He will review and address any questions he might have. If there are substantial differences, he will forward to enforcement to review. And regarding the Coastal Commission Enforcement Department, Shahar advised 2 new enforcement officers were recently hired, and the previous one is no longer there. The previous officer wasn't moving things forward, but the 2 new officers, per Shahar, are putting the pedal to the metal and trying to resolve non-compliant issues. So this is a good thing. As soon as enforcement has reviewed the day-use boater parking situation and the slip layout, they will schedule a meeting with us. The next topic we discussed with Shahar were dock boxes. We asked if they were prohibited by the Coastal Commission. He indicated they were not, and felt there was something in the coastal development permit which required adequate storage for boaters. He is reviewing that and will get back to us on that issue. He also stated dock boxes do not need to be approved by the Coastal Commission. So doing some additional research on dock boxes, we found that the Dana Point local coastal plan specifically states marina renovations would possibly necessitate removal of all floating docks and piles, reconstruction of portions of the degraded quay wall, and installation of new docks, guide piles, gangways, security gates, dock boxes, and utilities. Other waterside project components allowed by the local use plan are the enhancement of lighting on the docks and public access improvements, including gangways and docks in compliance with Americans with Disabilities Act requirements. So to summarize, Dock boxes are allowed in the local coastal plan and are not prohibited nor require approval by the Coastal Commission. It appears Dana Point Harbor Partners made a unilateral decision to not include dock boxes in the new marina. We ask why. Of course, no one knows except for the Harbor Partners, but this is something we will ask the Harbor Advisory Committee to address. So on to bait receivers. Shahar did say bait receivers need to be approved by the Coastal Commission by Dana Point Harbor Partners. In reviewing the local coastal plan, it does allow bait receivers in certain areas of the marina as long as they are permitted under the coastal development permit. So in summary, unless there's amendment to the coastal development permit, it looks like bait receivers aren't allowed. Lastly, regarding the 2 hotels, the Coastal Commission is taking a year to review the application for the 2 hotels. They want to ensure that both of them are compliant with the Coastal Act prior to submitting them for approval by the Coastal Commission. They also want to make sure the underserved youth program is properly addressed. We did get word from Supervisor Foley's office yesterday that some additional amenities for boaters were added to the hotel plans, including 2 additional showers. So we'll keep you posted on the progress in this arena. So I know many of you are interested in what's happening on the legal front. So at this time, I'm turning it over to Dennis Winters. Oh, Dennis, you're muted.
Again, this is Dennis Winters. As you're probably aware, we had a disappointing result from the judge hearing the case. He ruled in favor of the partners on a motion for summary judgment. I'm not going to go deep into the weeds on the ruling, legal ruling, but basically he ruled that boaters who were not intended to be beneficiaries of the lease of the marina and so could not enforce the lease provisions which limited slip increase amounts charged to boaters. The 4 attorneys who have worked on the opposition to that motion, we all agree that it was wrongly decided, and I'll strongly believe it should be appealed. While appeals are difficult, we believe there's a good chance of prevailing on this one and getting it reversed. If we do, we can force a trial in which a jury would be asked to decide if the slip fee increases are reasonable. I think all of us will agree that they're not reasonable. If we don't appeal, my fear is that partners will feel emboldened to do another increase soon. The order on the motion is still not final, and we can't appeal until it's final. So the final decision on whether to appeal hasn't been made yet. Any boaters' input on this issue would be encouraged. If we proceed, we'll need boaters' continued support and encouragement more than ever. And we thank you for the support we've received so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. So we have a message from Grant. Grant is indicating that 3/4 of the parking in the day use boater parking is back in the ramp as required, but not to the size that's required. So Coastal is looking at possible enforcement action, and Grant is going to be following up with the 2 new enforcement officers to hopefully move this action forward a lot more quickly than it has been in the past. Now we would like to take a few minutes to update you on what Recreational Boaters of California, known as RBOC, an advocacy group for all recreational boaters in California, has been doing for you. They work in conjunction with the advocacy group at Boat US. First, some background history. In 2021, Governor Newsom's budget proposed a boater registration fee increase from $20 every year to $70 every 2 years. Because of RBOC's advocacy, this increase was not approved in the budget. Instead, a stakeholder process was approved to review the best use of boater funds collected by the state. The participants included the Division of Boating and Waterways, the commissioners, staff, and other stakeholders, including RBOC. The parties were asked to review proper expenditure of more than $107 million each year in fuel tax dollars attributable to boats. The most effective and efficient use of boater funds, including fuel tax dollars and registration fees. I don't know how many boaters know this, but part of the registration fees paid by boaters automatically go to the California Air Resource Board. Better approaches for increasing the small percentages of those monies currently directed to boating programs. And they were asked to review better approaches to enhance the financial participation of non-boaters who benefit from the current and future programs. The recommendations developed through this stakeholder process included developing a report on the economic impact of recreational boating in California, to enhance participation and financial contribution of stakeholders and beneficiaries who benefit from programs and services, to increase the statutory authority of the Commission to provide consent on the division's loans and grants from the Harbor and Watercraft Revolving Fund, to identify approaches for abandoned and derelict vessels that are not addressed by the existing SAVE grant program, to enhance the division's administration of essential programs, to identify programmatic improvements to programs that may be out of date, to return a significant amount of the motor vehicle fuel taxes attributable to recreational boaters to the Harbor and Watercraft Revolving Fund, to identify other funds for grants for beach erosion control, and to adjust the vessel registration fee in an amount that is reasonable and that corresponds to the revenues and savings that are recommended. So let's fast forward to May of 2023. Governor Newsom's May budget revise blindsided most of the stakeholders by proposing a boater registration fee increase from $20 every 2 years to $80 every 2 years, a 300% increase. The fee increase proposal does not implement key recommendations of the stakeholder process, including it does not increase efficiency by actions such as transferring boat registration functions from DMV to the Division of Boating and Waterways. It does not address the DMV cost of administering and collecting the fees. It does not address the redirection of significant vessel registration fees to the California Air Resource Board. So the cumulative impact of the May revise is that 750,000 boaters throughout California are being made to pay more for less. What's the current status? The Senate and Assembly budget subcommittees rejected the fee increase. The legislature has passed main budget bills to the governor. The fiscal year began on July 1st, and the governor announced his signature of a package of 24 measures that include the Budget Bill Junior, as well as numerous budget trailer bills. This package does not include a revision to the vessel registration fees, and the text of the previously announced budget trailer bill has not surfaced. This package does not include an extension of the January 1st, 2024 sunset of the statute, providing that a portion of initial vessel registration fees is provided to CARB. And it's RBOC's understanding that Senate Bill 84 that would extend the sunset will not move forward, and that Assembly Bill 241, which as amended no longer includes this provision, is the measure that may move forward. The governor and his administration have not stated that they are no longer proceeding with their proposed vessel registration fee increase, or that they have revised the proposal. The legislature began its month-long summer recess on July 14th, returning on August 14th for a final month of action. So the possibility remains that the issue will be engaged before the legislature adjourns on September 14th. But RBOC is hopeful it won't. So for more information on this and other statewide issues, please visit rboc.org. So at our last general meeting in May, we mentioned the importance of filing a float plan when cruising. To make it easier to do, Hank Davis would like to share information on a cool app he found. Hank?
Thank you, Ann. This float plan app was quite an interesting application that's come on the market, put out by Cirrus. And it essentially replicates what many of us have used for with satellite text communicators to when we're out offshore, and to keep everyone informed of what's happening with us when we're offshore. Now this Cirrus app that is available both at the App Store as well as the Google Play now allows you to do the same functionality when you're within cell phone coverage, to have the same sort of functionality to notify your contacts and even first responders if you have an emergency. So it's an interesting app. What you see on the screen is the web page describing it. There is a YouTube video that's available, but it uses your phone as a tracker. It sends text to your contacts, routine text to your contacts, telling them where you are. It allows you to put together a float plan that is text to your contacts, and then if you have an emergency, it has an SOS function that allows you to send text directly to first responders, and they can communicate with you in the event of an emergency. So we would advise you go to the App Store or Google Play and download the app, and it's very useful for even paddle boarders to keep track of what's going on with them while they're out on their own. And for the first time, you're going to have communications and navigation available to you on a paddleboard even. So it should be a very interesting app for all of us to use. If you have any questions, if you'll check our newsletter, we'll have a couple of hyperlinks on that to cover this in more detail. And you can contact us if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Ann?
Thank you, Hank. And we hope all you boaters out there are taking it seriously and filing your float plans. So now we're on to our question and answer session. And Victoria is going to host this part of our evening. Victoria?
Thank you, Ann. We've had several questions pre-submitted, and I see there's a question also in the live chat. So we'll begin with some of the pre-submitted questions. First one, several boaters have asked if the old piles in phase 3 are going to be pulled and new ones used as replacements. Ann, can you answer this for us?
Yes, I can. So I did confirm with Supervisor Foley's office that the piles in phase 3, which is in the East Basin right next to the bridge, even though you still see some of the old ones there, they are going to be removed and new piles will be put in place. So that's a positive thing. Thank you.
Okay, next question's pre-submitted. There seems to be a lot of focus on wet slips and rents. What about problems faced by trailer boaters in the Embarcadero? And this person is saying, unless I pay extra to store my trailer, I'll be unable to trailer my boat to a mechanic of choice or to other launch ramps, which may be closer to the fish. I won't be able to just drop by and do minor maintenance, put things in the boat, etc. When will the dry stack be built? Will there still be surface storage available? And how will priorities be established for those who want it? Grant or Ann, this question.
I'll
you.
take the question. Yeah, I'll answer that, Victoria. Okay, so our apologies to the dry stack voters. We haven't put a lot of recent research into the dry stack. Dana Point Harbor Partners still has to submit an application for approval for a coastal development permit. So we really don't know what their plans are. We're not sure if they figured it out yet either, but we are going to put a point person on that. We'll start reviewing and we will start sending out updates for information on the dry stack. Victoria.
Thank you, Ann. I'll take a question from the live chat. There's one here. It's from Tom, and he's asking, the parking structure, is it going to start soon, the construction of the parking structure? Ann, can you answer this?
I can. I spoke with Supervisor Foley's office yesterday, and the Harbor Partners and Supervisor Foley have been having meetings on all the utility issues. And her office said yesterday that she is determined to make sure that parking structure starts in January. So she is really pushing it hard. So it's still on the schedule for January of next year. Thank you.
All right, another pre-submitted question. The new slip license agreement appears to have no recourse for a tenant to dispute an effective eviction from the harbor. Shouldn't there be some form of arbitration? It seems like some kind of county oversight should be necessary. Bob.
Well, we agree. And there should be some kind of arbitration, something like that. And this is an excellent topic for the new Harbor Advisory Committee to review, and we will definitely ask them to look into this. Maybe it should be part of something like a Voters' Bill of Rights. Anyway, I'd also like to remind you that any changes to the slip license agreement does require approval by the county. Back to you.
Thanks, Bob. Here's another pre-submitted question. I received my tax bill for my boat. I wonder, what is the tax revenue for the harbor? I have looked online with no success. I would appreciate you asking Katrina Foley, Supervisor Foley, for the last 10 years of tax revenue by year for the vessels docked or stored in Dana Point Harbor, including dinghies, skiffs, and commercial vessels. Ann, can you address this concern?
Yes. I would really like to know the answer to that question too, as I'm sure a lot of voters would, because I'm sure it's substantial money. We cannot answer that. That's one that we will definitely have to forward to Supervisor Foley. And once we get all the answers to these questions, we'll compile them all in a link in a newsletter. Victoria?
Right. Here's another question pre-submitted. What is the amount of sales tax collected annually in the harbor? And what is the percentage and dollar amount of those funds that go to the county as well as Dana Point? Ann.
Again, that's going to be another question for Supervisor Foley. We will forward it to her, and I'm sure we'll all love to hear what the answer is. Victoria?
Okay. We know the partners pay an annual rent and percentage to the county. Is this broken down by category for taxpayers to review? Specifically, Marina, commercial core, dry storage, hotel, yacht clubs, Aventura, Marine Institute, the shipyard, fuel dock bait barge, and Catalina Express. Are there any others? What are the dollar numbers by year? And this is a long question, and maybe you have an answer for some of this.
Yes, I do. Okay, so the master lease agreement between Orange County and Dana Point Harbor Partners. In section 4.2.3, paragraphs A and B, it details when the minimum rent and percentage rents are due. So per the lease, on the last business day of each month during the term, lessee shall, with respect to each component, deliver to the county a separate report summarizing the total gross receipts generated from operations on such component during the preceding calendar year. So I think that this would be a great question for someone to do a public record request with Orange County. We're happy to do it, but we usually don't get our questions answered for at least 20 days. If someone wanted to do that, that would be a great question to submit through the public request portal. The audited fiscal year-end financial statements, which Dana Point Harbor Partners has to provide to Orange County, also details the minimum and percentage rent paid. Now, their fiscal year-end is in December. The financial statements for each year to date are accessible on our website at danapointvoters.org. And lastly, you can review the Fund 108 financial statements on the State Lands Commission website. I think there's 10 plus years on there. The percentage rents are reported as a total under revenue and are for the fiscal year end of June 30th. So if you're trying to compare the audited financial statements in Fund 108, there's going to be a discrepancy because of the fiscal year end. But those are 3 resources for a voter to find out that information. Victoria?
That's fantastic. Has Supervisor Foley responded to questions submitted by the Dana Point Voters Association from our first general meeting? Anne?
Yes. Some of the questions have been answered, but others had to be forwarded to OC Real Estate. We had sent the supervisor a very comprehensive list of questions to review of disparities regarding statements made by Dana Point Harbor Partners at the town hall meeting, as well as the questions from our last general meeting. Our recap of the town hall meeting was very lengthy and it's going to take some time for her office to review. So once we have all the answers, we will compile them, send a link to all the cumulative responses so you can review them in one place. Victoria?
Thank you. This question is primarily for Supervisor Foley. Dana Point Harbor Partners unjustly raised the slip fees prior to the revitalization of the harbor, and this is not what the general public agreed to when the harbor proposals were approved. It was never to be the burden of the voters to fund the Dana Point Harbor Partners proposals. In Supervisor Foley's town hall meeting, she said she would look for other ways to mitigate this situation. What is or has been done? Do you have any information about this, Bob? You're unmute, please.
Thank you. Again, this is a question that has been sent to Supervisor Foley, and this is also something that the Harbor Advisory Committee might address, and we expect that to be soon.
Thank you. Everyone watching, please be reminded that you can type your questions. If you want to have a question if you have a question you want to ask, type it into the comments section now. Here's another question for you. Where is the oversight? It is time for Supervisor Foley to visit the docks for a boater guided tour versus another hype session directed tour. This is a comment by a boater. Alan, can you help us out with this comment? And you must unmute your mic, please.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, this is something that we often address. This is not the first time this has been addressed, but because of time constraints with the supervisor, we have to be very targeted in what we do. We're definitely, it's on our list of things to do as we work through all these different questions. We do have on file drone footage of the first 3 phases, that will be sent to her for review. But we will be following up to see if there's an opportunity we can make to do a boater guided tour so that she can see the other side of the equation. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan. Got another question. Why has the ADA, that's the American Disabilities Act, requirement to increase the width of the finger pier floats from 36 to 60 as mandated on page 48 of the CDP not been complied with? Has the Coastal Commission planner failed to investigate these violations? And
yes, thank you, Victoria. So if the new slips are not ADA compliant, Shahar Amate has forwarded us contact information for the 2 new enforcement officers at California Coastal Commission. He indicated that we could go direct to them. And he also indicated they're prepared to review complaints. And if there are, if the complaints are accurate, they're prepared to take some form of action. So we do have a boater who is preparing a report, and we will submit it to the enforcement officers for review. Hopefully, Shahar is correct, and the new enforcement officers are working a lot faster. Victoria?
thank you. Why has Dana Point Harbor Partners been allowed to eliminate 209 slips instead of the approved 155 slips, increasing the average length of slips from 32 feet to 33 feet, as documented on page 36 of the CDP? Alan, will you address this question, please?
Okay, this is one that we're quite hopeful to get answers on because it sounds like we've got some active enforcement officers now at California Coastal Commission. So this will be addressed shortly now that we have direct contacts with the enforcement officers. Victoria.
Thank you. That's good news. Here's another question pre-submitted. And once again, if you have a question, now is a good time to type it into the chat. If the advisory committee proves to be successful, and we hope that it will, could it grow into a permanent harbor commission to represent the maritime interests of the county on a long-term basis to ensure Dana Point is kept as a public harbor? Great question. And will you answer this question for the group?
Absolutely. So we are hoping that the advisory committee is so successful that this is exactly what happens. We all need to support this committee by sending them suggestions on items to review of concerned boaters. Other harbors like Huntington and Newport have full-time commissions. So if everybody works together and this advisory committee is successful, then maybe it will springboard into a permanent harbor commission. And Supervisor Foley's office did tell me yesterday that the members of the committees have been selected, and the announcement will go out from their office this week. So if you get something from Supervisor Foley's office, make sure you read it so you know who's going to be serving on the Harbor Advisory Committee. Victoria?
Thank you, Ann. That's big news about the Harbor Advisory Committee. At this point, we don't have any more time for questions. I think Ann has some other information she would like to share with us. So thank you for everyone. If you have any questions before we wrap up, please be sure to post them in the chat. There is one, but it's more of a comment, and you can read the comments there. So thank you so much. And back to you, Ann.
Thanks, Victoria. All right. So thank you so much, Dana Point Boaters, for once again turning into our very important meetings. We can't stress enough that the most important way you can assist our efforts is to continually flood the inboxes of Supervisor Foley the Dana Point City Council, and now the Coastal Commission with your questions and concerns. They need to know we're not letting up on our efforts. We post their email addresses in each newsletter now, so keep your comments flowing. Thank you also for your very generous donations to our legal fund and also to SOSs. We are very, very grateful for your generosity. We do still need financial assistance to continue our legal efforts and hope you will continue donating. We promise, as soon as we no longer need donations, we will be the first to tell you so. Please consider making a donation tonight before you log off. The link to our donation site is in the comments section. You can also buy items from our store online at danapointboaters.org, either a flag to fly in the harbor or hats or shirts. Anything helps. We will schedule another meeting towards the end of summer or early fall, so stay tuned for the announcement. So we're finishing up a little early tonight, but until our next meeting, enjoy your boat, enjoy spending time with family and friends out on the water, enjoy all the wonderful outdoor activities our great California weather permits, but most importantly, stay safe. We love you, Dana Point Boaters. Thank you for joining us tonight. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.